In a previous episode, I talked about how we had already built a liberal arts college, and it turns out I was completely wrong. I don't know why I didn't bother to check. I just decided to go full send with being wrong, but we don't have a liberal arts college. We have just a university here, and I want to build another one. Except I want to build a liberal arts college, not a university. We don't need two of these. We need another university elsewhere. So that's what I want to do today. But first, I want to take a minute or two. I'll put a timestamp on screen so you can skip this if you're not too interested in it at the moment. But I want to talk about a little something that I think is kind of important. It's not a sponsored bit, by the way. That sounded like it's not a sponsorship. It's nothing like that. It's actually like related to City Skylines. Well, City Skylines 2. Anyway, so if you are paying attention to the City Skylines and City Skylines 2 community and the discussion around those games in general, you will be aware that there's a lot of discussion at the moment about the state of Cities Skylines 2. Now, before I dive into this too much, I will say what you're seeing right now is just the cinematic camera thing in City Skylines. So some of these shots might be weird, but I'm going to let it play out for a minute or two. So the discussion around City Skylines 2 essentially is that the game was maybe not ready to release. It was a bit of a disappointment. There might have been some misleading stuff in the run up to launch. It's a lot of that sort of discussion. Now, this is not my official stance on everything. I'm going to make a video that's going to go out this week where I want to talk a bit about City Skylines 2, my opinions on the state of things, my opinions on the run up to launch and all that good stuff. But the reason I bring this up, the reason I think this is important is because there are people, there are creators that are already starting to speak up and talk about it and share their opinions on things. And two in particular, who I will link in the video description, that have released videos are Cities by Diana. There's one of the weird camera angles I was talking about, and Biffa. There are videos on both of their channels that are talking about the state of the game, and they are constructive, they are fair, they are brutally honest, which I think is very important. And I think it's a conversation that we all need to get into. It's not a matter of being toxic towards Colossal Order. I don't condone that in the slightest. I don't think any toxicity is going to be beneficial to this conversation. I don't think it's going to get us anywhere by hurling insults or just baselessly accusing people of being under non-disclosure agreements, and that's maybe why the YouTubers haven't spoke about it thus far. I've seen that getting thrown around a lot, and I can tell you, as someone that had signed a non-disclosure agreement years ago for City Skylines 2, there was no and there is no non-disclosure agreement that states that we cannot criticize the game until this point. The reality is that a lot of us creators have just gotten a little bit tired of the state of City Skylines 2. A lot of us were very much looking forward to it. A lot of us had plans, big plans for City Skylines 2 with regards to our channels. And I think it's also important to remember that for many of us, making these videos is our job, or at least it's a big part of our income. It's how we pay the bills. So there's a lot going into this. There's a lot of us have worked with Paradox for a very long time, and I think a lot of us are a little just concerned about things. So I think these videos are important to look into. I think they're important to watch. I will have them linked in the video description. I will have my own coming up on the channel later this week. But I just wanted to make you aware that this is a discussion that's going on, and I think it's important that we all get in on it and that we all are constructive in how we're choosing to address things. So I'll have my thoughts in a couple of days. Let's get into some City Skylines 1. Let's build a university, and let's hope that it doesn't look terrible. So I've already done a little bit of the prep work for this university. I've added a new interchange to the highway right about here. We have this beautiful little section of highway going down to a roundabout, which I decided to make all fancy with some nice smooth connections to it. And then I just threw an avenue onto the end of it because I figure what I'm going to do is basically go in here and build a nice big campus using the liberal arts college assets, which I think are right here. So it's going to be this guy as the main building. But what I want to do first is actually go in here, grab all of these trees, and I'm just going to get rid of them. So all of these trees right to there, all of these trees on all of these bits of land are just going to go away, and I'll replace them eventually. I'll put my own trees in here, but I just want a nice clear canvas. I've flattened most of this area as well, so it is good to go. But at least this way I don't have to have, you know, anarchy switched off when I'm trying to build things here. So what I'm going to do to get started is I'm going to go back. That's about 10 units there. I'm going to go another, I think 30 units right about there. And my thinking was that I'd use a series of one-way roads to sort of guide people around here. But when we have the median here, that's basically what this avenue is. Well, is it? Is that basically what this avenue is? Is that how I want to do this? I think maybe we will actually go for a couple of one-way roads for this front part here, which is where the, you know, the main building's going to go. So we'll go 20 units there. I'm going to do 8 units right about there. We're going to go 40. We're going to go another 8 and down to here. And the reason I wanted to do the 8 right about here is because I wonder, I absolutely can, I can do this. So we can have this little sort of one-way thing going around here, but then we can have avenues that loop around everything else. And I think that's sort of the best of both worlds right there. So that's going to be our main little entrance-y space. We can go ahead and put the, what is this actually called? It's the administration building. Yeah, we can put the administration building right there, which I don't love. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a huge fan of the liberal arts style on these universities, but I think it's the most appropriate for building this out in the countryside. I'm also thinking I'm going to go in here and just build a giant district for this thing. And just to be clear, this is not going to be the overall size of the entire university. I just want to have a giant district so that I can build wherever I want to build and not have to worry about expanding the district a little bit later on. Now, this guy's going to need some water. I'm going to go ahead and get that done right away so that technically this thing can go ahead and start working pretty much immediately. So we'll bring ourselves some pipes right down here. We'll bring ourselves some pipes right down here as well. And what I'm going to do is just extend this guy all the way out. We'll bring it right over towards the city. And my thinking is we can just connect it to this corner right here. And so with the water provided, this thing should be up and running. It can have up to 500 students right now. It's not attractive in the slightest. It needs some academic works, but we can get started on that. We'll just go ahead and give them $50,000 for cinematography. That seems like a great start. And we can expand this thing with different buildings as well. Right now we have the, what is this? The dormitories, we have the study hall, we have the groundskeeping, and we have the drama club. So I think what I'll do is start with a couple of study halls, and I'm just gonna, do I want to put them like this? I think I do. I think I want to put them either side of this main building. And what I'm going to try and do is line them up as best I can with the front of this building. So one right about there. I don't know if these guys are actually the same on both sides. Are they? So it looks like that on that side. It looks like that on that side. They're more or less the same. I mean, this one has some benches. It has a door. I want to say that's fine. They're not completely identical, but I mean, from above, they have the same footprints. That's fine. It also flanks this kind of nicely. And I don't know. I'm really not a fan of this building. It's just a little too, it's not as grand as the other ones. If we go and look at this guy, where is it? How could I not find this giant university? This thing just looks amazing. And the other one does as well, the trade school campus. I mean, I think I can throw it down very quickly somewhere, and we can get a very quick look at what the trade school administration building looks like. It needs to be at a roadside. It can't be at that roadside. Can I just place it? You know what? I'm not gonna, it looks good. All right, just take my word for it. You can see the picture. You can see it right there. It looks great. Now, what I've also decided to do here is swap out the avenue for one of these guys, the large avenue with grass, so that we have the trees down the middle, but we don't have too many lanes. I don't think we need 4 lanes circling around this entire university. And it looks like I haven't really flattened out this space at all. So let's very quickly go ahead and get that sorted out, because I do want to build my dormitories sort of down this way. And I'm going to keep that looking kind of nasty for the time being. We can flatten it out eventually. We can go ahead and grab these nodes as well and flatten those down to terrain height right about there. And my thinking for this is that I want to do, I kind of want to do something that's not just going to be, I don't know. I don't want to line my dormitories up right next to each other. I want to have space between them. I want it to be an area that has little parks and places that people can go to enjoy sitting outside. So I think what we'll do is we'll start right about here. That's 10 units. I'm going to go 20 and I'm going to skip one. I'm going to go another 20. And that should mean that in theory, if I switch back to this guy, I can bring this road down here. I'm going to go 50. Oh, maybe I'm not. 50 might be too far. Okay, we'll do 40. We'll do 40, and that's fine. We'll do 40 here. We'll do 40 here. We're going to take these roads out. And what I'm going to do instead is, let's see, do I have my guidelines on or off? They're on now. So I could do 3 little sections of road right here. That across that way is 40. So if I do 15 and I do another 15 right about here, that might be too close together though. So maybe instead of using the guidelines, maybe what I do instead is I turn the guidelines off and we just sort of border it up against the existing zoning. We'll do 15. We'll do another 15. We'll do 15 on this side. And we can do 15 on this side. And that gives us all these gaps in here. This can be some kind of park. We can do paths around there. But the main reason I want to have this space is because I can go in here, I can get the dormitories, and I can put 2 dormitories per road. So they're going to be facing each other. But then in and around them, we're going to have all this beautiful space to play with. So we'll do this. And we'll do exactly the same thing. We're going to dot these on every single road here, hopefully getting them lined up nicely. It's not going to be exactly perfect, but honestly, that's not the end of the world. And so now what I want to do is come in here and just get as many little pedestrian paths as I possibly can to make this space as walkable as it can possibly be. That's sort of the big goal with this entire thing, is just make it incredibly walkable, a really pleasant space to be. I do want to try and connect to the concrete at the back of these buildings as well. So that's going to be a little bit of a something to play out. Something. Man, every time I say, I catch myself in the words something every time I say it, because it's such a lazy way to describe what I'm doing. It's, you know, oh, we're going to do a little something here. It feels very me, but it's also so lazy. It's just, it's so lazy. I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to take out these bits of path actually, because what I can do is a little something in here with some parks. We can actually get something in here that's going to be a place people want to go. Assuming there's actually a plaza or park that will fit in here nicely. I mean, obviously I can use move it to sort of scooch it over a little bit, but I'd like to find, do I want to do balloon tours in here? I don't know if I do. Birthday Plaza might be a little bit much. Have we got anything? Oh, we got these guys. We got the pond park, which is too big. We have this guy, which is too big. We have the park with palms, which doesn't fit centrally at all. We've got a tiny park, which I love. We've got tiny playgrounds, which I love. We've got tourist parks. This one fits nice and centrally. And then we have the sidewalk restaurants and cafes as well. Okay. I could just do a skate park. I think we'll just play around with some of these guys and use move it to sort of move them over, and that'll be fine. Now, something else I want to do is play around with parking just a little bit. I don't know that I love the idea of just slapping a bunch of parking lots down in here. I think it's going to take away from the look a little bit, but it seems like it would make sense to have parking right next to the dormitories. So even though it is taking up some space, I can surround these with trees still, and I think it'll still look okay. So that's what we're going to try and go for here. And speaking of trees, I think we're probably at the point where we can go ahead and just decorate this entire space. Although I do want to have a quick look. How are we doing in terms of our numbers? We have almost 900 students, which is fantastic. We have a capacity of 3,200 right now, which is also fantastic. So we just need the academic works and this place will level up, which is great. We have one that is being worked on here as a research grant. We have 30% chance of getting another one. So I'm going to throw some staff at this thing. Oh, that does not increase the way I hoped it would. So I can go up to a 63% chance, but this thing is going to be so expensive. You know what? We're just going to stick with a 30% chance. If we get one, we get one. If we don't, then it's going to be next year. And honestly, I'm sort of okay with that. So when it comes to landscaping around here, I think what I'm going to go for is just this. I'm just going to stick with the base game trees that we have on these dormitories already, since it kind of matches the best way. I might throw some slightly fancier trees into this kind of middle space so that we do have some variety in here, because I don't know that I love these trees. They're not necessarily my favorite, but I think just a little something, I've just said something again, a little something to hide these parking lots at the very least is going to be for the best. I think for these roads here, that's a bit much, but maybe we can get away with the young linden trees. And I think we absolutely can get away with some young linden trees along here. They're just a little smaller, a little bit of a different shade of green. Looks pretty decent, if I do say so myself. And we'll sort of bring the same thing back this way on the other sections of road as well. So when it comes to the backs of these buildings, do I want to go the same way or do I want to change it up a little bit? I don't really know. I'm going to be honest. I feel like going the same way with the same trees is sort of the best thing to do here. I'm going to just try and line them up with the existing trees as well. So we have this sort of very clear, I don't know, pattern going on. I don't know that I love it. I'm not going to lie. I don't know that I love it, but I think it's just what we're going to go for because it just makes the most sense. I don't have the mod that's going to let me swap out the trees at the moment. So we'll just sort of copy and paste these guys around. We can line them up with the tree right there on the right. So something like this. And in this case, it's going to be the one on the left. So we line it up like this. And it's a little much, but I'm going to stick with it. Again, I can't swap out the trees in the buildings, so it'll be fine. I think the last thing we can do is put one here. We can put one right about here. And if anything, I might even just swap out this road for something else. I might swap out the trees on this road for literally anything else. Maybe even just these little bushes would look better than more trees on the road. The trees in the road are a bit overkill, but maybe we don't want to go for those bushes. What about those ones? Yeah, let's do those. I think that looks okay. It's a little weird, but I think it looks okay. Okay, so I think this is in a pretty good place. We've got a lot of people coming out here to park up and either visit the parks or go to the dormitories or I guess go to the university. We have almost 1,000 students, which is absolutely fantastic. The reason I'm building this, by the way, is because we have a lot of people eligible and we don't have the capacity for it. So yeah, we do need another university. But here's a little something I've been considering. I've been looking at, where is it? This thing, the good old reservoir that we have up here. And I've been looking around at a lot of my industry and noticing that many of my power plants keep running out of fuel. We have this one in here that's run out of fuel. We have some elsewhere that occasionally run out of fuel. We've got some abandoned buildings down here and these guys are historical. Hold on a minute. That needs to be fixed. You guys are not allowed to be abandoned. I just need to reset you so that they'll come back. I can't lose these buildings. They're all very deliberately here to look a certain way. So there we go. I really don't like that happened, but fair enough. Regardless, I was thinking about building some kind of nuclear power plant out by this reservoir. And in doing that, I would sort of take water from the reservoir into the nuclear plant. I'm not doing it today, but it's an idea that I've been floating around. And then it hit me. Why don't we sort of create a tiny little river that goes out of here? It can go sort of underneath the highway a little bit. It can come all the way over here. It's going to sort of go around here, probably underneath that road. And I want to do like a little pond here because these were always here. This is, you know, ruins from the war. Which war? The war. Why don't we build like a little pond? And then we could do the groundskeeping thing out here. We could do the little drama club out here and we can turn this into a really nice park space. It'd be very historical, but it'd be a nice little park space. And then maybe there's just a little trickle of water goes down maybe here or maybe down there or down here. It doesn't really matter, down into the river. I think that'd be kind of cool. So I'm going to give that a shot. And my thinking with this is I need a very, very weak brush and a very, very small brush. And I'm also going to have to go for a slightly bigger brush for a second just to flatten this out because it's not perfectly flat around here. So this all needs to be nice and level because I have a very specific idea in mind for how I want this to look. So I need just a slightly larger brush. I need to go down a little bit just so we can get a water source in here. So we'll go down to about there. That might be a little deeper than it needs to be, but we'll go for about there. And what I'm going to do is go for a stronger brush. And I'm going to leave like a little island in the middle of what is essentially a little lake because I like the idea that those buildings are still going to be there. So we'll do something like this. We'll kind of bring it out so it's not just a perfect circle. So a little something like that. We got a little island and I think that's good. We can push it this way as well. So again, it's not just a perfect circle. I don't know if this would be, I don't know if I consider this like a natural thing that's maybe been here for a while. I think we might consider this like a little man-made something. I just said it again. Oh God, it is what it is. We'll go with that. I think that's fine. Maybe just a little something there as well. So it's not quite got that straight edge. And I guess that opens us up to say that this is where our little waterfall is going to be. So we'll just sort of push out here And that opens things up kind of nicely. It's not going to be a huge waterfall by any means, but it's going to be a waterfall. And then I think all I need to do is go in here and just hit this with a brush. That's going to mean that the water sort of trickles down a very, very specific path. So it'll follow down here just fine. It'll follow probably down here. And then all I need to do is apparently that. So that'll be fine. And then it goes down to the water. So what we'll do is we'll lower this a little bit as well. I'm going to get myself a slope terrain tool from that spot going all the way up to here. And we'll just sort of slope things down. It's going to need to be a little wider than this, I think, but that'll be okay. So it's going to come down. It can sort of curve this way a little bit. This is actually very, very steep. It'll curve this way a little bit. We'll sort of curve it back a little bit around those rocks and just have it meet right about there. That is very steep. That is unreasonably steep. I don't know about this. Hold on a minute. I might have a better idea. Okay, for now, this will be fine. I'm just going to place a water source up here and we're going to see what happens. Basically, that's kind of the goal. So we have a water source. We don't need a lot of capacity on this. I'm going to place it there while we're paused, bring this right down, and it is just going to be filling in that space right about there. So if we go ahead and run things, this should start to fill with water. It is starting to fill with water. It might flood things a little bit as well. It's going to take a minute to probably figure out exactly where it needs to go and how it needs to flow. But I mean, so far so good. It's not actually flooding anything. We're probably going to want some water sources around here as well. So what I'm going to do is come down this way, place a water source, and I'm going to just put it right at the bottom of where I want this little waterfall to be. So right about there should be good. I kind of want it to be a little... I kind of want it there. I want it very close to the surface. And I'm going to do the same thing sort of here. Again, very, very close to the surface, just to make sure that this thing actually has got a good amount of water in it. It doesn't really make sense the way the water's going to flow here. This reservoir doesn't really have a source, wherever it is. There it is. Doesn't really have a source, but that's probably fine. We can make that work. Oh, you know what? I'm actually kind of pleased with this. It needs smoothed out. It's by no means done, but I'm kind of happy with this. I also decided to raise the water source here, so the water is going to be a little bit closer to the edge right about here. So I think that'll look better. It'll hide some of the dirt. Obviously, it's going to need landscaping as well. Obviously, I'm probably going to build a little bridge out to the island, and we're going to have paths going around this as well. But I think this is a good little start. Now all I need to do is figure out a way to bring water out of this thing and do it in a way that's not going to look terrible. Because I like the idea of just a little river that sort of flows maybe down this way, underneath the train, underneath the highway, past the dormitories, underneath this, and into there. So somehow I've got to do that, and I'm really not too sure how. So I'll go for a bit of a stronger brush to start with. We'll grab this terrain height here, and I'm just going to sort of push this way. I'm actually going to grab a very, very strong brush just so that this is done a little bit quicker. We'll sort of push that way. We'll make this a little bit wider here so that things going to open up a little bit. And really, it's just a case of pushing whatever direction I want to go. I think I'm actually going to sort of go this way. So it goes underneath that avenue. And I think that'll be kind of interesting. So it sort of curves around, goes underneath that avenue. Obviously, we can turn that into a bridge whenever we feel like we need to do that. But it'll go this way. I'm going to sort of curve it at an angle. So it kind of curves underneath whatever bridge we're going to put here, which I think will be pretty cool as well. And we are getting to about the hill now. So we'll curve this way. So it kind of comes down. It doesn't quite go past the dormitories. It's going to come down that hill and sort of, curve away from the dormitories, underneath this road, over to that little, whatever that is, the little island, and all should be good. So now what we need to do is figure out where it's crossing underneath the highway. Now I could cross it on this side, but I don't know if that would make too much sense. It's, I guess, probably going to come down through here. I think this is our lowest point. So this is relatively flat up here. This isn't going to make a lot of sense unless I start cutting away the terrain pretty massively. Ooh, I might have bitten off a bit more than I can chew here, but we're going to give this a shot. We're going to just sort of carve through here, and that'll give us something I can work with a bit more than what we have. So carve right through there. And then what I want to do is I want to get a very, very weak brush, lower that terrain just to about there should be good. We'll grab ourselves a slightly smaller brush, a slightly stronger brush, and we're going to try and just do a slope terrain the entire way through here and see what it looks like. And honestly, I'm sort of here for it. I think that's actually perfectly fine. We'll go a little bit wider in some spots just so we have some variety. We can do sort of exactly the same thing here. Just carve away at that corner a little bit so we have some variety. Technically, it should probably be wider on the outside as the water's pushing against the banks of the river, but we're not going to get into the physics and geography of that whole thing right now. Oh, you know what? For a first pass, I'm actually not really all too mad at this. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know if I absolutely love how this looks right now. And obviously the water is all colliding because it's still trying to figure out where it needs to go. But I don't mind it. I definitely don't mind it. So we'll go ahead and start smoothing things out a little bit. We'll smooth out some of these sort of larger sections of terrain that need a little bit of love right about here. And then what I sort of need to do is bring the brush strength way down and just start very carefully smoothing out the edges of this little river, because I kind of don't want them to be jagged. I want it to look a little better than it does right now. So I'm going to go around and just do my best to tidy it up a little bit. And I'm hoping it's not going to cause the terrain to flood too much. Some parts can be deeper than others for sure, but there's definitely some parts that could do with being a little bit more gentle, a little bit more pleasant to look at, and just a bit better than what they are right now. Okay, so other than this thing flooding in a few places where I would rather it didn't flood, such as right about here, and also at one point flooding most of the highway, I want to say that this is looking all right. We still need to do some work down here on the beach. We still need to do some landscaping around this thing, but it's a decent little start and it kind of looks the way I want it to look. I also decided to come down here, and we have a water source right here, which is why it's flowing into the reservoir. That's honestly something we might be able to get rid of because there is enough water in here, I think, to make this work. And I guess there's one way to find out. We'll just delete that and see what it does. But I decided to play around with node controller to get some right angle corners on this key. And I thought it would be a good idea as well to use this path as sort of a bridge to continue the key a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. And immediately looking at this, we might have some problems. I need to get a slightly smaller brush, a slightly stronger brush, and I'm going to go to this height right about here. And I am just going to cut straight through there so that we actually have this thing continue to do what I want it to do. We'll get a nice little slope terrain tool and sort of run it down this way as well. Now that is going to get rid of some of my, well, it's going to get rid of most of my landscaping. I'm actually going to go for a slightly bigger brush and do exactly the same thing from here the entire way down. And again, we can hit this with a smoothing brush at some point, but for now I just need the water to flow out of there the way it was before, because that's going to have the entire river now dry up, which is not exactly ideal. We'll go for a slightly weaker brush and just smooth out some of these sides just a teeny tiny little bit so that it doesn't look quite as rigid, quite as sharp as it does right there. But hopefully the water source that we have in the reservoir itself is going to be enough to make this work. I mean, that is a good amount of water flowing out there now, so I would imagine it'll be fine. And I do think we have some water sources still along the river somewhere, so we'll see what happens. This bit here is probably likely to flood, and honestly, I want to just tidy up some of these bits here as well. So moving away from the river for a little bit, we actually have an academic work at the university. We didn't get to, which is unfortunate, but there was only a 30% chance that we would. So I've gone ahead and invested in another cinematography grant so that we'll have a second academic work, which means this thing will level up at the end of the academic year, which means that we will get more things. But obviously, before we get there, we have some other things that we could build, and I do want to build those things. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use some gravel paths just to sort of plan out what I want here. I want some paths that go around this, that go nicely around this little lake thing that we've created here. And I'm just going to use little straight sections to sort of lay out where I think those paths should be. So they have this coming around here. We can have a little straight section sort of here as well. Maybe a little something back here would be a bit of an idea. I don't know where these are necessarily going to go. I don't know how these are necessarily going to connect together, but I just want something kind of like this, I think. Do I want to do a curvy little bridge here? We probably could. We could probably get away with a curvy little bridge. if I turn on my my guidelines, which don't seem to want to turn on right now. Yeah, road guidelines. If I got numlock, hold on. There we go. Now I can toggle them with a hotkey. That's much better. Something like this. It's 8x7. It's not the worst looking thing in the world. We'll do it. Well, we'll do that for now. That's not what it's gonna be when we're done here, but yeah, for the time being, I think that's okay. And then the rest of these guys, I'm gonna connect them together as best I possibly can. So a little something like this. This guy's gonna come out and go to there. And then these guys, I don't know how this one's gonna work. Maybe this has to be changed and maybe we just freeform it ever so slightly. So we'll turn the guidelines off. We'll go to here and then we'll start to freeform this way. We can sort of freeform this way and we'll just sort of wind it back and forth. We'll get a regular sort of curve tool. We'll get some guidelines. We'll do this. I don't love that, but I'm gonna go with that for the time being. And I think what we need to do realistically is get a little bridge up here as well so people can get across the water on this side too. So we'll go for a straight section of path. We'll turn the guidelines off, elevate to, honestly, 4 meters is probably fine. And then something a little bit like, I want to say that should be fine. Yeah, I don't actually mind that at all. Then this guy will bring it maybe a little bit of a freeform tool so it curves this way. We'll turn the guidelines back on, get ourselves a curve, and hopefully we're going to be onto something pretty good here. I don't know if this lines up perfectly. It actually looks all right. And on this side, pretty much the same story as what we're looking for. We want to go, I think that lines up. Maybe not. Right to about there seems pretty good though. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for, I think. And then obviously this will get changed into a different type of path. It's not going to stay gravel. I think we'll go for, you know what? I think I might go for the amusement park path just because it has that lovely texture to it. I'm a really big fan of the red sort of brick on this path. I think it looks great. I also want to use this path because it gives us a little bit more of a rigid bank on the water here, which I think is going to be for the best as well. And then swapping you out, what does that look like? Is that a bit much? I think I'm okay with that. I do think I'm okay with that. Over here, obviously, this needs to be changed up a little bit. So we'll go to object height right there. We'll grab those nodes and we'll bring those up slightly. They don't need to go too high. It's not like we're trying to get boats underneath this. So maybe right about there is what we're looking for. And so maybe these nodes here also go to that height as well. So again, we're not trying to get boats underneath it. This would be a terrible place to take a boat. I'm kind of okay with that, except for this bit. I don't love this bit at all. I think it looks kind of terrible. So maybe we take out a little section of this. Maybe we take these guys out. And maybe this is just going to be a bit of a bigger curve that sort of loops around. And I'm thinking that is better. It's not perfect, but it's better. The whole point of building this was that I wanted to go ahead and put things like groundskeeping out here because that seems like it would make sense having groundskeeping out here. So we'll go ahead and expand the campus area to cover that whole thing because obviously it should. And then groundskeeping is just going to live there, basically. That's kind of just where I want it to be. I could push it a little bit further back if I wanted to. I could give it its own little dedicated path as well, which might be kind of nice. So we'll put it maybe right about here. Or maybe sort of in the middle of that path section. And then what we can do is come in here with just some more sections of path like this. So we'll go 2 units back. We'll go to here. We'll go to there. And I'm sort of okay with that. I don't mind it. We could probably shuffle this to be slightly more on the path and slightly more central, which I now think it is. It is going to need power, which is going to be kind of a pain to get out here because reasons. We could just do a wind turbine, I guess. And I think for now I am just going to do a wind turbine because it's the easiest way to do things. And then for water, we'll figure that out shortly. But the other thing I could do here is the drama club because it's not a huge looking building either. It's maybe a little weird to have the drama club out here, but it's small and it's nothing too crazy. It's nothing too fancy. I just kind of like that it's here. So I think that's going to be the plan, which means somehow I need to connect this entire space to the roads and figure that out. So I think for now what we'll do is we'll grab ourselves this section of road here. We'll bring this over about 20 units. We'll go I'm going to say 50 up to about there. And then something can go in this space, but for the time being, as kind of a temporary measure, what we'll do is just bring ourselves a path right off of here and right out to there. And that's just going to be how that whole thing's connected for now. I know it's not a great look, but we still kind of need to upgrade the university a little bit before we can go too crazy with making it look better. So for now, this is the way we're going to do it. And I think we'll just bring a bit of a pipe out there as well. So those are now functional, which should push the attractiveness up a little bit. 355, still have enough students. It's almost the end of the academic year. Is there anything I'm missing? Do we have any of the large buildings? We actually do. We have the School of Education, which I'm inclined to say could go out here. I think we maybe give it its own little spot right out here. And that'll be what we then bring the paths off of the back of here. So for the School of Education, let's just do a road with a median for now. And we'll go ahead and come off of, let's say, I want to say right about here. We'll go 10. We can go 20 for now. We'll bring this down to here. And we'll see if the School of Education fits nicely on this thing, which it sort of looks like it will, which is great news. So we'll go for about there, which I think is central. We can go 3 units and down, get rid of you. And we can go 3 units down and get rid of you. So this thing's nicely planted on its own little bit of land. And then hopefully, I absolutely can come off of here with a section of path, and I can come off of here with another section of path, and that can connect out like this. So that's going to give us a couple of great little connections out to this space. We can go ahead and do a little section across the back here as well. And that means we have this beautiful space that we can play with for decorations. We have this great space in front of the School of Education as well. And I'm also thinking that I might, at some point, be able to get some of these little plazas in here too. But for the time being, I'm not going to do parking out here. I do want some plazas though. I want something. Oh, I can't do plazas out there because it has to be on a roadside. Ooh, okay. What about this? The old bridge park. If I move that school back a little bit, I could do... Ooh, actually, I don't have to move it at all. This thing just fits really nicely. Let's just shuffle you. So you're kind of more like this. And honestly, I'm sort of all right with that. I think that looks fine. We'll have that right in front of the School of Education. It lines up relatively nicely with the doors. And we can do a little bit of detailing on either side of it, so it looks like it's extended. And I'm actually quite okay with that. That'll be great. So how are we looking now in terms of campus attractiveness? 380. We can still have up to 5,652 students now. That's a lot. That's a lot of students. We also have almost 1,000 students with no public transport connections out to this place either, which is great. What's also great is the river is now starting to behave. This bit obviously isn't, this bit isn't, but it's getting there. Oh, and as if on cue, we've managed to level this place up quite nicely. Let's give them another grant so that we can get a 3rd academic work. We're going to need 4 of them to level up again, and we need more campus attractiveness. But the benefit of leveling up is that we have more things to play with now. We have this guy, the Liberal Arts Outdoor Study. We have the Liberal Arts Gymnasium, the cafeteria, and a fountain plaza looking thing as well, which honestly, I've just realized would probably look pretty darn good right about there. And I do like that. I think that's pretty solid. We can get some paths connecting through here at some point as well. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to come in here and I want to get the outdoor study, and I'd like it to be right about there. I think I can get away with this. And I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to come in here. I want to get my liberal arts thing. I want to get these paths, and I want to go 2 units that way. And I want to go to, what is that? 13 for the back of that. So 13 there would mean I want to go another 13 here. I want to go the entire way across and hopefully get this to line up properly, which I think it does, because my thinking is that I might just do 2 of these back to back. That might not be a terrible idea. So something kind of like this. And they might be a little bit too, well, you know what? Actually, I'm kind of okay with that. I think I can get a path through the middle, which might not be the worst idea in the world. Definitely not that type of path. It doesn't quite blend in, doesn't quite look as good as it does elsewhere. But I like this idea because at the very least, what we can do is have this open space and then surround this with more buildings for the university. I also think we could maybe do a little something here just to sort of connect this up to the road a bit more. And I'm sort of okay with that. I think that looks all right. We can do more study halls if I really wanted to, which I'm not against doing. I don't mind the idea of sort of duplicating these buildings. Yes, functionally they're just study halls, but we could argue that maybe they just have different classrooms and lecture halls and stuff like that. So we'll start with this. So we are getting more study halls, and that's fine. We also have, what did we get? We got the gymnasium, which is not a bad looking building. I think it could maybe go sort of down here, or I could put it sort of next to the study halls. It might not be a terrible idea, but we'll go for down here for the time being. Ooh, I actually really like the look of that building. It's got the pillars at the front. Looks pretty good. I don't think it's central, which is slightly frustrating, but we can just sort of shuffle you along ever so slightly. I think that's a bit better. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And what else did we get? We got the cafeteria, which is not a bad looking building at all. I don't necessarily know where I'm going to put it, but maybe for now we just sort of slap it alongside here, and that'll do for the time being. And then these guys obviously need water, but how are we looking for attractiveness? We're up to 645, 7,647 potential students. We have over 1,000 students now as well, which is great news. So what I think we'll do is we'll go ahead and just bring a bit of pipe the entire way back through here. That will hopefully cover everybody in there. It absolutely does, I think. I don't think it's covering these guys though. Interesting. All right, well in that case, we'll do this and we'll do this. So now they'll be working. And I want to say that's a pretty solid start for a new university. I'm not going to spend multiple episodes just super detailing this thing. The next, we're not done yet, by the way, but this isn't going to be finished today by any means. I just wanted to get this thing going because obviously we had a huge amount of eligible people with no space in university, but now, well, we're doing pretty good on university capacity. But before we go any further, I think it would be a good idea to consider the idea of, I like the idea of a train station out here. I'm not going to lie. I do love that idea. I don't know where I would put it though. Although maybe down at the dormitories. Maybe down here would be a great spot. What does that look like right there? Is that a bit silly looking? I mean, it is a bit silly looking, isn't it? It doesn't look great, but I don't know that I hate it. And that's, I don't know if I like the fact that I don't hate how this looks, because it does look a bit weird. I can't do a little cafe in there. That's kind of unfortunate. But we had some other plazas I could play with, right? The tourist parks? No, not those. Is there any like tiny little plaza that I could put in here? What is this? That's a tiny playground. That's a tiny park. I could do a couple of tiny parks in here just to sort of fill the space in front of this thing. And I can play with the variations as well. So I could do like this little like plant flower garden looking thing. Or I could do a gazebo. I actually really like how customizable these are. That's very cool. I think we'll just go for variation 1 on all of these. So we have like a little something in front of this. I don't know why there'd be 4 vegetable gardens next to a train station, but I also don't know why I'm really building any of this other than the fact that I need it. I'm kind of winging it. I don't have a plan for how I want this to look just yet. So I'm very much just improvising, but I think that's cool. I think that's all right. That doesn't have a metro underneath it though, does it? And I'm pretty sure there are, is it maybe some of these content creator packs have, let's see, if I search by train stations, we have an elevated island platform train station. This one looks pretty cool. And it would sit really nicely right there. I don't think it has what I'm looking for though. That's a dual island platform one. I don't know if any of these actually have metro underneath them, but maybe we should go for this slightly more interesting looking one with a parking lot. I don't mind it. This one's got like the big round thing in front of it. I'll tell you what, that's exactly what we're going to do. So I can get rid of these flower gardens and stop them from looking silly. So what does this one look like? Is that too much? Yeah, that is absolutely too much. We'll go for the smaller one, which I think has a larger parking footprint in front of it. Yeah, that doesn't look great either, does it? It really doesn't fit the style of the area, but you know what? We're committing to it. That's what we're doing. We're committing to it. We're going to build ourselves some train lines. We're We're going to have buses and trains coming out here. I could use a metro line, but I've built all these train lines and no one's using them there yet. So hopefully this will fix the problem of no one using the trains. Oh, now this is unfortunate. I forgot about these. I've gotten so used to playing City Skylines 2 and keeping this one paused that I forgot the death waves are very much a thing and are very much active in Vanillaville right now. Good Lord. That's a lot. That's a lot of bodies that need collected. Good Lord. Well, in other news, we have a train line that connects out to the region here now, and we have this all connected up to the rest of my train infrastructure. So what we can do is have a little bit of fun and get ourselves a train line that's going to run from here into the heart of the city. And it's going to have to share some platforms here a little bit, which honestly, I'm sort of okay with. It's not really the end of the world. I'd like to put it on another platform, but I don't want to connect this to everything right now. So I think for the time being, given that there's not really much going on, we'll connect it to here and we'll just have this run right back out to the university, which is a pretty good line. We'll also go in and change this up to be sort of a similar shade of blue to the rest of them. That's a little bit too dark. That's about right. And I think we'll go for, I don't really know what to go for. The commuter train seems like a pretty good shout, to be honest. So we'll go for that. And that should be fine. We'll also sort these like so. We actually have a good number of people on this one. I'm pretty sure that's the one that goes out to the little village that we built. So that's all right. And then what we'll also do is we'll get ourselves a bus that comes out to there. And this bus is going to go back to, I realize the bus line is potentially not going to be all that popular because it's going to be stopping relatively close to where the trains are. But I guess if we had the bus line, so it goes to the university, maybe this bus line is going to be one that goes from to a few different places. So we'll start it, I'm going to say right here, if I can. So we're going to start it right about there. And I don't necessarily know where I want this bus line to go, but I think we'll bring it down and we'll have it stop here, and we'll bring it through and we'll have it stop maybe right about here. And we can bring it sort of up to, I mean, it needs to get onto the highway at some point. So maybe it comes up sort of next to the hospital. We've got some people living in that space. I don't remember where anyone's living around here. I'm not going to lie. So I'm kind of just improvising. We'll have it go to here and then it can hit the highway. And then it goes out to here. We'll have it stop on this side. It's going to come back and it doesn't need to go out that way. It doesn't need to come down here, but maybe it does come in sort of off the highway here. We have some people living in this space because those are all Brooklyn style buildings. So we'll have a bus stop here next to the metro. And then maybe, I mean, it comes down, it can sort of stop opposite the other stop right there. It comes along, it can stop opposite here. And then it just goes back to about here. So we'll complete that line. We'll go in, we'll get the most recent bus line, which is this one. We're going to swap this guy out. I'm going to say for the double decker, and I think that'll be all right. I'm also going to make it sort of a brightish green color, and that should be fine. And then for the university itself, just because I want a little bit of symmetry and I don't like just one bus stop, I'm going to say a bus stop right there. I'm going to say a bus stop right about there. And I'm going to have one right down here, right up here, and right about there. And that's going to be another new bus line. It's going to be using, we could use these little guys. Capacity 25 seems pretty solid. We'll go for a nice green right about there. And that's going to be a little shuttle that gets you around the campus. And that seems fair enough. I also didn't stop to check how many buses were on this line. I need to pay attention to that because that might be a little bit much. 47. Let's bring that down to 20 for the time being. So 41%, 20 buses. That'll hopefully be enough. We'll see if anyone actually wants to use these the buses here as well. And I'm also thinking, can I, by any chance, swap these guys out? I absolutely can, which gives us some crossings, which is perfect. There's a crosswalk right about here, which is totally fine. There's one right about here, which is totally fine. This thing actually has a good number of people coming down here to park, which is great. And there are a few people waiting for the trains as well. So that's good as well. Okay, this is good. We have some transport infrastructure. We have this place on its way to another academic work. It's attractive enough. It has enough people. This is good. I like how this is coming together. Oh, now this is good. We actually did manage to get a second academic work last year, which is beautiful. The problem is that we don't have enough students anymore. And the reason we don't have enough students, I think, is because of this death wave, which has knocked out about 14,000 people from Vanillaville. I've gone through and I've looked at everything. We have enough electricity. We have enough water, enough sewage treatment, although it's getting a little bit close on that one. Industries are fine. Healthcare is fine. Even death care, when I looked at it, we still have enough crematoriums. We just, everyone, 14,000 people up and dying all at once is a bit of a, it's going to be a bit of a strain on anything really. But while that's been going on, I decided to come in here and do something important, which was decorate alongside the river. Obviously, that was far more important than adding more crematoriums or cemeteries. Regardless, I think it looks pretty good. I've got some landscaping out here now with a whole bunch of different types of trees as well. So we sort of, I guess, are going to use this river as the border for the university. This train station is also relatively popular. Every now and then you'll see a decent number of people stood around waiting for, well, this train has 20 people on board currently. It's got 65 now. This one gets used from time to time. There are people going back and forth, which is beautiful. There are also regional trains that come in here from time to time, which I'm completely okay with. So that's great news. The long and short of it is that people are finally using the trains. So I've really got nothing to complain about there. The only complaint I've got is that there's not really much I can do with this university until we go ahead and deal with the problem. Well, until we wait for the death wave to go away. That's basically all we can do. Although at the very least, I suppose I could add another cafeteria to over here by the dormitories. That doesn't seem like a terrible idea. I think I'm going to get rid of this one because I don't love that spot for it. And then I might put another cafeteria sort of in here. I don't think this is a terrible spot, although what we could do maybe is just push this road back a little bit. So bring something out to here and then maybe, I don't know what way I want to do this necessarily, but maybe we do, I don't know, 10 right about there. Maybe we just bring this over actually and just do this for now. And the cafeteria could live sort of on this chunk of land. So I think that's actually exactly what we'll do. We'll put a cafeteria right about there, I think is fine. I actually don't mind that. It is a very modern looking building next to this thing, but that's fine. We can also go ahead and get ourselves some paths around this as well. So the path is actually going to go here. And we'll go maybe 8 units back. We'll bring this across so we have that nicely sort of surrounded. Bring this down so it lines up here. Obviously, these paths have dirt underneath them. There's not a lot I can do about that. But honestly, I'm not against this. I think it looks fine. And I think what we could also maybe do here is use the parallel tool to get ourselves just a nice little enclosed space here. I don't want to use paths. I want to use this fence actually. So we'll do that again and do it properly this time. So grab you, and apparently I can't grab this one. Oh wait, no, I think I can. There we go. So we'll grab that one. That honestly looks fine. We'll go ahead and approve that. And what we can do is just bring some of these nodes back ever so slightly, just so they're not on the pavement there. Bring you down so you're lining up with the pavement, and bring you down so you're lining up with the pavement. And I'm sort of okay with that. I think that looks pretty decent. I was thinking I would do some stuff in here to make this look like it has a whole bunch of outdoor seating, but I don't know that I want to do that because we just have these boxes back here. It's not really, I mean, there's outdoor seating here. The rest of this building doesn't really strike me as something that needs a bunch of outdoor seating. So I think what we'll do instead is just come around here and maybe do some very, very basic landscaping. We'll just get some trees in all of the corners right about there. We can go 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 in the middle. We'll do 2 there and 2 there. And then if we just go and select some trees with move it, we can say that we want to line those up. We can line these guys up as well. And we can line these guys up and just get something that's a nice little perimeter around this thing. And I'm sort of okay with that. I kind of like the idea of doing one big oak tree, maybe sort of by one of these corners. Maybe by this corner, we could do like a big oak tree. It might block a little bit of the sunlight for that sort of deck there, but I'm okay with that. We can maybe do a couple of little young lindens across this wall just to, again, it's going to block some windows, but adds a little something to it. And then maybe at the back here, I want to go in and I want to do a forestry fence, I think. So I'm going to turn off grid snapping. I don't really need it. I want to bring this guy out by about a unit to there. And we're just going to bring this down to about there. We can go and grab those nodes. We only want to grab the fences. And I'm just going to shuffle this until it kind of lines up with the concrete so that we're kind of enclosing that back space there. I don't think we really need it to be completely open. And I'm sort of okay with that, actually. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe extend that up to about there. And you know what? Maybe we bring it down here as well. So we have that entire space behind the cafeteria just nicely enclosed. It's not visible from this path, which is good. I like that. I think that's a very, very simple way just to get this thing to look like it's a little more planted, a little bit more deliberate, and maybe I want to do just a little linden on this corner. I don't know why, but this corner just strikes me as something that needs a little decoration. I kind of like that, and maybe a little bit of color as well. Maybe a little bit of color right here, here, and here, with a little linden and a little regular bush or two right about there. I think that's fine. I could keep going in that forever. It doesn't look amazing. It's not spectacular, but it's good enough. And I'm sort of okay with that. Okay, so I think the death wave is probably a sign that we should call it there for today. The good news is that the city is now starting to rebound a little bit. We are seeing more students come into the university, but it's going to take a while for the death wave to just completely go away. But it's not all bad. I managed to do a little bit of decorating here in front of the administration building and the study halls. I'm kind of happy with how this has turned out. And I used some plazas from the Plazas and Promenades DLC to add some benches to the front of the cafeteria by the School of Education. So I figured this was a nice way to get some decoration in here. And it was also a nice way to make it look like, hey, you can cross the street, you can come into this plaza, you can eat your lunch, your dinner, your breakfast, whatever you're doing in the cafeteria, eat a snack, study, do whatever. You can do it in front of the cafeteria. But let's not forget, there is so much more still to do with this university. So I will be continuing it in the next episode, obviously, but the next episode's not going to be entirely dedicated to finishing this thing. It's going to be an ongoing project that we'll stop in with for a portion of each of the next few episodes as we unlock some of the bigger and bigger buildings. The School of Education's great. I think it's a really good example of some of those bigger buildings that I'm talking about. There are, I think, 2 or 3 more buildings of a similar size that we can get in here, which I think will look fantastic. And then once we have sort of a finalized layout for this thing, at that point, we can go ahead and landscape the entire thing, surround it with a beautiful forest, some paths, get some people walking around here, get some people excited to be here, and hopefully we're never going to be wanting for more education in this city, at least more university education in the city ever again. But like I said, that is going to do us for today. The death wave, I think, is a sign, and I'm going to pay attention to it. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.